confidence be displayed. Success is unavoidable, desires will be attained, and you are capable. Can't no one stop your hustle, you're resilient and brilliant. Your blessings have no ceiling, you shine and keep grinding. This spiritual remedy is divine and designed for your heart to align with your mind. A prophet for the queendom's hotline. A vision. Fearfully and wonderfully made, confidence be displayed. Success is.
Hi, welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again. This is Beverly Coleman and my co-host Crystal Robles, and welcome to this week's episode of Her Divine Voice. It is a podcast that is for women by women. Yay!
Yeah, so excited.
So, Crystal, welcome back, our listeners. Let them know what we hear.
Welcome back. We're so excited for you guys to all tune in for our second episode, which we will be talking about God's plan and just being very real and transparent of how, we have done things on our own accord, and God has surely was like, and that is not my plan for your life. So it's gonna be a good talk.
That's going to be a good talk. And you know what I'm excited about? First of all, we just want to say, if you listen to our first episode, we hope that you got a little sense of who we are and how we dialogue. That's what we were most excited about. But these are the kind of conversations that we have with each other. These are the kind of conversations that we have around the dinner table. When we have in girl time, when we're working on our businesses. These are the kind of conversations that we have because as women in every generation, we all struggle with things. We all have things that we plan to do and things just don't work out that way. And so we were like, we're sure a lot of women out here go through the same thing. They do the same thing. They have the same issues. And so that's why we created this podcast. And then once again, just a little bit about Miss Crystal Robles, because I like to blow my girl up. Crystal Robles is in the health and beauty industry. And at the end of each program or on the screen, you'll see information on how you can reach out to us, contact us. If you're interested in having some dialogue with us, because the floor is open, we welcome everybody to have a conversation with us. And we're just going to have a good time and keep it real. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And right off the bat, I can share something that I've struggled with in the past concerning God's plan is sometimes clarity, right, feels more like wilderness. That's me. Follow me on this.
Okay, go ahead.
This is in my head, right? I'm the kind of person that have a lot of talents. I know that I have a lot of talents, and I'm not the only person in this world who has a lot of talents. A lot of women have a lot of talents. But for many people, when you're multi-talented, you're the type of person you struggle with, and again, I'm speaking for myself. Where do I start? Right? As you know, Crystal, I've done MLM businesses. I've done writing. And I said, I'm going to be successful in writing. And then I've done publishing. And I was like, I'm going to help other people publish their books. And I'm going to be successful in that.
She was also successful in network marketing and MLM company.
Yeah. And the thing is, I really enjoyed it. My first toe into MLM, I was doing Southern Living at Home. Did I ever tell you that?
No.
I didn't even know anything about it. My girlfriend at the time, she did a Southern Living at Home party. And I didn't even know you could buy stuff for the house like that. I was like, what? It was so pretty. I fell in love with it. It was very demure and it was beautiful. I loved it. And then I went from that to selling Silpata, which I really, really loved that. And for me, it was like, oh, you can make money doing this. And then I went from Silpata to Pamper Chef. And it's like, I like having my hands in a lot of things. I don't mind the hustle.
Same. I don't know if that is like an up north thing because, I'm from New York, you're from Chicago. Yeah. But I don't know. I think we're built a little different up north.
Yeah. Because when I moved here, and I know I shared this with you, when I moved here, people didn't have that
they didn't.
And I was they don't. And it was okay, so if you're going to do this, you really got to be you're doing this for you. You want to be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because, and I'm the type of person, I thrive with backup. Like I like having that energy around me. If I got to do it on my own, I'm gonna take my time and I'll get to it. And people always say, well, you got to have what is it? Not a compatibility,
Accountability.
accountability.
Accountability partner.
Yes, that doesn't work for me. You know why? I've tried it, but when I'm on, sometimes your accountability partner's not on. And
Right.
then, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree because I'm like that. I like to have an accountability partner or a challenge, right? I like something to challenge me to the
Yeah.
next level, right? Something
Mhm.
that will get me out of my comfort zone.
Right.
Because sometimes you can't have accountability partner if y'all not on the same page or on the same
Mhm.
level. Like, hear me
Yeah.
out here. You have to actually reach for someone who has done it or is doing it and seeing
Mhm.
results, right? And
Yes.
you guys then feed off of each other. But
Yeah.
if it's someone who is like less motivated than you are, at
Exactly.
this point it's no longer accountability problem. Now you're like a mentor. Now you're like you're coaching them instead
That
of them
part.
being your accountable partner,
Yes.
you
Then
know?
it's like, and a lot of times people will be like, well, you've just done this longer than me, and I know you got this, and I just don't want to bother you, and blah blah blah. It's like, well, we both letting me off the hook.
Yeah.
I may as well do this thing on my own. And so that becomes a problem for me. And so the thing is like I said, when you have these multi things that you don't mind getting your hands into, then you can kind of naturally deviate from God's plan because you're not listening. You're like, well,
Naturally.
God bless me with all these things, so I'm gonna do all
Yep.
these things. And I'm sorry, I'm a Virgo. Like my brain can do this and this and this and this, but it can also shut it all down and be like, I'll get to it.
Yeah.
And that's no excuse, but that's how, for me, I kind of get out of God's plan because when I'm doing all these things and not finishing anything, because I'm guilty of that, then I got to go back to the drawing board, like, be like, okay, God, what did you want me to do?
You
And
know
that's
why too? You know why? I'm so sorry to interrupt
no,
you,
you're
but now
fine. Go
like you know why too? Because I could agree with that where it's just like I want to do so much, right? And then you see certain things happening for other people and you're like, "Oh,
ahead.
if she
Yes.
could do it, I could do it," right?
Yep.
But you know where it messes up, where it messes a lot of people up, including
Mhm.
myself,
Yeah.
is like, did we even go to God first to ask him,
That's right.
hey, God, what do
Hey,
you think
God.
about this? Should, like, help me decide, give me wisdom in this, right? Should I pursue this?
Yeah.
Give, give me revelation, right? Like confirm to me, speak to me. And if this is something that is your will and it's something that is going to be a blessing, right? Not only to me, but for others,
Yeah.
direct my steps, open up those doorways.
Yeah.
And when you don't do that, because since we're hustling, the hustling mode, right? We're
Mhm.
we're always active, we're always not afraid to take risk, and we always like, oh, we want to be better, right? We want to do better. So it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, this, and that. But in the midst of doing this, this, and that, we totally forgot to even
Yeah.
include God and ask him, is this, direct me if this is something that I should be doing.
And you know what else we do?
What?
Even when we do, and I'm saying this because I'm guilty of it.
I
Even when
might
we
be
do,
guilty too. Let's see.
we get tired of waiting.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
We
the
get tired of
patience.
waiting
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
when you have a relationship with God, you know how, like, okay, I'm just gonna be still. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm gonna be still. And then you get on social media and you see what everybody else is doing, and then you say to yourself, I could do this. Let me just do this.
Exactly.
Just do this.
Yeah.
And you get and that's that you get stuck.
Get
And
stuck.
that's another reason I was glad. Like, even this podcast came along. It was like, listen, I could talk all day long. I could talk to
Same.
people. Like, I got things to say. I'm like, this I could do. Let's do this. And I
Yeah.
was excited about doing this. And I think that's why we're here, because we often expect like that divine connection or direction to come with neon signs like, right here, go this way. It's going to be a smooth
Yeah.
process. But if it's marked with uncertainty, detours, moments of um, insecurity, you
Yeah.
don't know what to do,
Yeah.
silence, like God's not saying anything, then you have to, be willing, I think, to be patient and be more deeply. Because if you're really trying to get in business and you really doing it because you're worried about what other people are going to think or other people are going to say or what other people are doing, you're not going to
Yeah.
have passion for it anyway because you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what I've learned yesterday actually at church at it was the sermon was so good.
Yeah.
And she was basically saying, like, going back to like God's plan, but she was saying how we are all like God has, going back to what you said, I'm filled with gifts and talents. I believe that everyone, right, inherits gifts and talents from God, right? And she said, okay, God planted that seed in you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So what you're gonna do about that seed? And a lot of us, going back to, sometimes, yeah, we do wait, but in the waiting process, right,
Yeah.
where it's like, all right, God, this is something that I want to do, like, let me know,
Yeah.
like, if it's from you, that I know doorways were open, right? Doors
Mm-hmm.
are open, everything will get aligned, but I'm gonna move my feet,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm moving my feet because now I'm activating my faith, right? And
Yeah.
at the same time, God is going to activate his supernatural,
Mm-hmm.
right? If that is the seed he planted to us, for us to do.
Yeah.
If not, what I'm saying, then I'm telling you, he will stop it real quick.
Real quick. What is a time when you felt confident, like in your own plans, and then God clearly directed you to do
But I
something?
don't know. I'm gonna have to like literally journal. I journal a lot, so we're gonna have to go back to many years.
Yeah.
But recent, like, let's just say, the one that came, like, now that I'm thinking, there's one that has happened recently.
Yeah.
I'm just not ready to share, but we will one day. We will one day.
That's
But
cool.
but
Uh-huh.
I remember when, again, as you guys know, was divorced. I am divorced
Mhm.
for like 7-8 years now. But I remember I was living in Florida, going through a divorce, and
Mhm.
I literally wanted to go back to New York, right? Why? Because I couldn't find work here. And I was like, well, in New York, I have connections, I know people. Let me text my boss, who now happens to be a good friend of mine. I was like, let me text her and see if she has, if she could put me back into the fashion industry. I text her, no answer.
Mhm.
Okay, no answer. Couple of months later down the
Mhm.
road, when I think it was like Hurricane Irma, it was September. It was actually your birthday month, right?
Okay.
She texted me and was like, "Hey, I'm checking in on you. How are you and the family?" And I'm like, question mark, Nicole, because she's the only one that calls me like Chris. So I was like, Nicole, and she's like, yeah. And I said, girl, I texted you 2 months ago because I
Right.
wanted to come back to New York, and I'm telling her, and I saw that her number didn't come saved as Nicole. It came out as like just a number. When
Right.
I checked her number saved on my phone
Yeah.
versus the number that came, the text message, it was one digit off. One digit off. And when you have like a new phone, and it's supposed to transfer all your contacts,
Right.
it didn't. It did, but with her phone number, for some reason, it was one digit that was incorrect. So now, at that point, I knew God right there was
Wow.
like, no, I took you out of New York for a reason, right?
Yeah.
You're not going back. You're planted in Florida, and
Mhm.
you're going to stay in Florida and do what I called you to do,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And from one digit. And that's when I knew for certain that I was like, okay, I'm not moving back to New York.
Yeah. That's something.
One digit. It was wild. It was
You
wild.
know what's crazy? I think people don't pay attention enough to that little
Yeah.
error, because I feel like that's happened to me before, where I was like, "Oh, I got it wrong. Let me just do it." You like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would have kept trying. Like, did you not get
Yeah.
my message? I would have been like, "I'm trying to text you. Did you not get my message?" Trying to
I'm
like,
sure,
yeah,
I didn't even think I could have
yeah,
probably, sent her a message on Facebook, but I didn't. It was just that
yeah,
one text like, hey, I
yeah,
need to find a job. Can you get me back into the industry? I'm
yeah.
moving back to New York, which I didn't, because I was waiting for at least a job to be secured. And
Mhm.
no, nope,
Yeah.
nope, nope.
You know what? My biggest flex, and mine is old, but this is my biggest, like, I'm thankful God had a plan, and I literally had nothing to do with it, because I didn't start really getting into manifestation till, and really believing and understanding, speak those things that be not as though they were. That's, to me, that's manifestation, right? The Bible says, write the vision, make it plain.
Listen, that's gonna be our next episode.
Okay.
You
You
know
want
why?
why?
Yeah, I'm so sorry,
No,
because
you
someone, I think a lot of people get confused with manifestation
Uh-huh.
right? How the world perceives it, you know,
Uh-huh.
where, and then and if you could, you might disagree or agree,
Mhm.
where, like you just said in the Bible, right? It says, speak life into existence, right? Speak it, write it down and make it plain, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people get that confused when I say no, the
Mhm.
original manifester, right? Was God, right?
Because he literally spoke the world into
Oh,
existence. Let there be lights.
and there
Boom.
was light, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so when you are in Christ Jesus, if I could take it another step, and then I'm
Go
gonna
ahead, girl. Go ahead,
that.
preach.
When you are when you are in Christ Jesus, we are made in the image of him. We are joint heirs with Christ when you accept him. That means whatever he can do, I can do. Now my
Amen.
faith is not on 10 all the time, like
Yeah.
Jesus is, but that's where we learn to grow in him, where we remove those doubts. That's why when you and I pray, we say, hey Lord, speak through my vocal cords and think through my mind.
Yeah.
Because if we do it our own way, we get, like I said earlier, we get off the path,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I know I shared this with you because I share it with everybody because it's my first time putting together like, whoa, God had a plan. But
Mm-hmm.
when I lived in Minnesota, we were in Bible study one night and they were talking. It was, I think it was a guest person, and he was talking about, if you want something from God, you write it down, you tell God what you want, you speak his words back to him, blah, 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 and you be specific.
Yeah.
And I remember I said, this is the house I want. I want 2,500 feet or more. I want 20-foot ceilings. I want white carpet. I want 4 bedrooms, 3 bathroom. I want the. I was specific, right? My mind is, I'm gonna get this house in Minnesota because where else is gonna be? This is where I live, right? I like,
Yeah.
this is where I live. And that was written down and I moved on. Just like, oh, I got faith, it's gonna happen. It's just gonna happen.
Yep.
Well, at my job at AT&T, I was promoted and then I did the things and So now I'm in Florida. Still thinking like, oh, I still wanted that house, but it's just in the recesses of my mind now. When it was time to buy a house, I spent a year looking for a house. Everything was like, for whatever reason, it wasn't working out. And then I finally bought the house that I'm in now. And one day, Crystal, I'm standing in the closet and I don't know if I was praying or what or talking because I talk to God all the time, all day long. And I was standing there and literally I was like, it was like God reminded me of my prayer. You said 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. And I was like, oh my God. You said 20-foot ceilings. And I was like, oh, you said white carpet all throughout. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah. You see,
this is my house.
his
And it
plan
was,
wasn't for you to be in Minnesota. It was
man,
to be
wasn't
in
me,
Florida.
but I didn't know that. But I was just doing what I do,
Yeah.
not focused on it. I wrote it down and kept it moving. I was specific and kept it moving. But I remember thinking, oh my God, and I cried. I was like, oh my God. Like
That's
this
why
is,
they say, like, you're looking at things that you once prayed for. You're
yeah,
living the life that you're living today for
yeah,
something for you that you once prayed for.
that's right,
So, you know what I'm saying? You have to count your blessings,
girl.
even though it didn't go according to,
Mhm.
your plan, right? Your plan was to buy a house in Minnesota. My plan was to go back to New York. And no, and then when you look around, you're like, God's plan is always way more amazing than your own. And yes,
Yeah.
does he give you the desires of your heart? Yes, he does, when you delight in him,
Mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
the desires is that you wanted a house, he gave you a house, right? That was a desire. The only thing, his plan was in a different state.
Is that the lesson you kind of took away with when you start off do you like your plan and you couldn't reach her? Like what lessons did you take away from that?
Like, so any lessons I have learned in situation that, like, let's just say didn't match mine, was
Mhm.
just basically, when they say like God's no is not like, you just say, oh, maybe no is not maybe permanent, maybe it's just not the
Right,
right time,
right,
right? And
right.
sometimes I say, okay, God, like, if it's not the right time, then give me the patience. If it's not the right time, then tell me where to go, right? Like open a different door,
Yeah.
when it comes to like things that have not went my way,
Hmm.
and it doesn't make sense when you're going through it. Like it doesn't at all.
It
But
doesn't.
then as you're going through it, he starts revealing to you, right? his
Hmm.
his plan and why he had to shut certain doors or why things didn't go the way you wanted them to go. And then you just start again praising him,
Yeah.
because then you start to think, imagine if I would have stayed, imagine if I would have moved, right? Or
Yeah.
imagine if I would have gotten that, job opportunity because it paid way more money.
Mhm.
But what am I exchanging it for, right? Like
Exactly.
present time with my daughters, whatever it is, since I do work from home, right? It just, you start thinking about all these things that
Hmm.
didn't go right, and then you see everything aligning,
Yeah.
and then you're like, "Man, God, thank you," because we have to remember that God's plan for us is for, it's not to destroy us or to, you know, um, discourage us. It's to
That's Jeremiah.
literally for us
That's
to,
what you doing. Yep.
Jeremiah 29:11, right? For success and prosperity. I have the
Yeah.
frame right in my door. Every day I step out, I'm looking at that, right? Because
Yeah.
his plans are so much better, right?
Yeah.
So when there's doors that are closed, the lessons I have learned is just God knows why, and I'm trusting him.
That's right. And I
That's
think
it.
yeah, I think that's the lesson I took away too. It was really about trusting God, because as a young adult, I didn't have a lot of trust for a lot of people, right? People will
Mm,
let you down all the time.
yeah,
And I know my nature, like, but from a spiritual point of view, I was like, okay, I don't have a choice. You know what I'm saying? You get to a point where you don't have a choice. When I first left Chicago, I lived in Madison, Wisconsin first. I lived there for 4 years and I wasn't married yet. I was dating my husband, but you're in your early 20s. That's wishy washy. Like, you don't
yeah,
know how long that's going to last. And it was me and my daughter. And I had no choice but to trust God. You know what I'm saying? When I moved to Minnesota, now I am married and the marriage is rocky. And guess
mm,
what? I completely had to trust God because my husband didn't move with me when I first moved to Minnesota. And
yeah,
so it was like, and then I found out I was pregnant. So it was like, I got my daughter. I think she was 7 or 8, and now I'm pregnant. It was like everything I did, like, Lord, help me find the right school for my daughter that's safe. Because when you're living in a city where you don't know anybody, you don't
yeah,
know that neighborhood that you know what I'm saying, that you're enrolling your child into. You
yeah.
don't know, you know what I'm saying? I didn't even think Facebook was around when I first I don't think Facebook was around when I moved
Probably not.
to Minnesota. So it was like, you just, I'm looking at maps, baby. I'm looking at maps
Uh-huh.
to get to this house, to this job, to that daycare. Seriously,
Yeah.
baby. It
Yeah.
was,
Or you have to call and say, okay, can you give me directions to your location? And then they will say,
yes.
okay, you're gonna see a Walgreens at the corner, right? At that corner, you see a
Yeah,
Walgreens, make a right, and then go to yes, I remember.
girl. Exactly. You don't have a choice. Now tell me you can't, you don't have a choice but to trust God in that.
Yeah.
But I do know, literally, that's where I grew up. I've always said, I was adult when I moved there. I was an adult when I moved there, but I grew up in Minnesota, meaning
Mm-hmm.
God God gave me wisdom. I grew up. I finally had an understanding of spirituality and connecting with people. Um, and I mean, God really changed my life when I lived in Minnesota. Like, it was just different. And so I think that's what I always take away from the challenges and struggles that I go through, especially when I don't follow God's plan. Because I'm not perfect. Like, we're not perfect and we do our best, right? But we
Yeah.
have to, yep, wake up and always get ourselves back in line and say, Lord, help me to stay on your path today. And I may not
Yeah.
be perfect, but I know you got my back.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
the thing too is that God will put situations in your life
hmm,
that, can literally break
yeah.
because I've experienced it, right? And I'm sure many of us have experienced it. However, at that point where you're going through things that you think they're gonna break you, I feel like that's when he shows up the best.
Yeah.
I feel like that's when you get on a spiritual level of connection with our creator. It's just out of this world, to be honest with you, because then you literally learn. You literally, not only are you learning through that lesson, but you're learning more to not worry. You're learning more to know that he's your provider. You're learning more that, the same way he feeds the birds, right? And the lilies, your plants, flowers, he like, he got you. Like, what makes you any different? Like, he got you. And everything that I've experienced up until now in my life, and when I go through situations, I always have to remind myself and look back and see everything that I went through, but everything that God had his hand on, and how he walked with me, how he directed my steps, how he literally took, made me pivot for the good, for his plan, for his way, and I look back at everything he has done in our lives. So when another situation comes, I'm like, oh, this ain't nothing, God. Like, okay, I understand. I've probably stopped going to church. I probably stopped connecting with you. I probably stopped doing my quiet time. And he has to check you on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys
and
have
he will.
Fox, right? The Jamie Foxx.
Yes, the special on Netflix. What had happened was
right. That literally, I was going through something in my life, and that was recent, y'all. Okay. And one day we will share. And I remember just sitting there bawling, listening to him, and how he said, how God was like, yeah, I blessed you with X, Y, and Z. Right? I blessed you with fame. I blessed you with your home, your daughters, your cars, your Grammys, your talent, your gifts, everything. I blessed you with a stroke. Right? Why? Because you forgot all those talents, all those gifts, all those blessings came from me, and you totally forgot about me.
Yeah.
So now I have to bless you with a stroke to be like, to bring you back, right? And say,
to get you closer to me. Yeah. To get you
closer,
to
draw you back, right?
That's
so that you could start doing everything that God gave you as gifts and talents. That is to glorify him, right? That is to win his kingdom, right? So that people could see your light shine so radiant because of God, right? So in situations like that, when you go through stuff, I'm reminded about that special. That special broke me to my core. And I was reminded at that point, like, okay, God, I understand why you're doing this in my life. I totally understand. I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad anymore. I'm not going to stop crying. You know why? Because I literally started to forget about you, you know, and you were like, no. We have to, here we go. Right now, only forget about you. Sometimes you're in a situation that distracts you from your calling, right? Sometimes you put yourself like, oh, I desire this so much, going back to, having your hands on everything, or you not waiting, right? And then you're so distracted, you forget to include God, right?
Yes.
And what happens? He gotta, like my mom back in the day, she was, I give you the hand, right, of freedom when I was young, and she said, I give you the hand, but no, you want to take the whole arm, and then I have to snatch you back.
Read, don't play.
Yeah, she said, I have to snatch you back, snatch you back to like, no. What do you think God does?
Yeah. And he does it because
my mom's plan was to raise, right, a daughter who, is professional, well taken care of, well mannered, right, conservative as far, respectful, respect to elders, someone who was hardworking, independent. And when I literally was like no. So what do you think God does when we deviate, right, from certain things? And he's like, he'll let you go through it. That's the thing, right? He'll let you go through it. And then, because this a lesson has to be taught, right? And then he has to remind you, no, this is not, I let you live that because you desire this so much, but you know what? That is not my plan for your life. So, because I love you so much.
Fearfully and wonderfully made, confidence be displayed, success is unavoidable, desires will be attained, and you are capable. Can't no one stop your hustle, you're resilient and brilliant, your blessings have no ceiling, you shine and keep grinding. This spiritual remedy is divine and designed for your heart to align with your mind, a prophet for the queendom's hotline, a vision.